Hey friends, happy Wisdom Drop Wednesday. Today's class is going to be on empathy and friendship and the mistakes that I have made and what I've learned about being a better friend, but also being a better coach. Because I do obviously coaching as my full-time career. And some of you guys are coaches who are listening to this, and so you're definitely going to find value. Some of you are friends, and I feel that this really applies on both. So whatever perspective fits best for you. I have realized that I want to be a better friend, and I'm always growing and being a better coach. And these mistakes that I've made in the past, I've really been thinking about them. Of like, oh gosh, that's embarrassing. Can't believe I said that. Can't believe I did that. Can't believe that friendship dissolved because of the ridiculous thing that I said, right? And I never want to bring that into my coaching. So I really started thinking about this, and I want to share my mistakes with you and things that I have learned, because I have a huge trauma background where I always had to just put my big girl panties on. I was the older sister and protector of my little sisters in really abusive situations, verbal or physical or otherwise. And so it's always like I didn't have time to cry or to work through emotions or do any of that stuff. I always just had to put my big girl panties on and march my way through life. And so empathy is something that doesn't come very natural to me. I wasn't a child that was ever coddled. I wasn't a child that was like held, oh, sweet baby. I have so many stories of like, even I had a fence go through my leg, and I was like, Dad, I was on a horse. And I was like, Dad, I need your help. And he's like, get over here. And I was like, no, I can't. I have a fence in my leg. And he's like, get your ass over here. I was like, okay. And I got off of my horse with a fence in my leg, a piece of it. I have giant scars on my leg from this, and hobbled over to my dad, to see if there's a piece of wood in my leg. And they went to McDonald's or they went to Taco Bell before they took me to the hospital. Like, I don't really understand empathy. It's not something I grew up with. And so people want to be heard and listened to and held, and I'm like, what the fuck is that? Like, it's not normal for me, and I have been called out in so many different ways on how to be empathetic. So some of you guys are totally going to resonate with me, and you're going to be like, yeah, I totally get that and why you would say and think those things. And other people are going to be like, wow, I'm so glad that somebody understands, because what I do need is to be held and listened to. I'm going to give you some examples. So, and hello everyone who's hopping on here. So what I'm going to break it down into is 3 things that you can do to be a better friend, a better coach, a better mentor, and things that I have learned that I wasn't very good at, but I have learned. 3 things that you also probably shouldn't do, because it could potentially dissolve friendships, and people probably won't come to you for support. So good morning. I see you guys commenting. Thank you for participating with me today. So let's get started. Number 1, always acknowledge their feelings. So I didn't understand this. If I'm feeling sad, somebody doesn't need to tell me, oh, I can understand you're feeling really sad right now. I'm already sad. You don't need to tell me I'm sad. And I never understood when people would do that to me or if they did it to other people. But now I realize that what we're doing is we're mirroring their experience. So if someone is having a hard time, we could say something like, wow, I can imagine that sounds really tough. Tell me more about how you're feeling. Like, I see that you're feeling so sad and I feel this weight on your shoulders. Let's talk more about that. And that didn't make sense to me at first, but when my friends started doing it to me and I saw how they would do it to other people and how those other people would respond, I was like, there's something to this. Like, what we're showing is that we care and we're hearing and we're mirroring. So other words are examples. I've had to write this down and study this. It's a true story of saying things like, wow, that must be tough. And I can only imagine what it would feel like to be in that situation. Because we can't, right? Think about the Black Lives Matter, right? Like, I am a passing white woman. And if I'm like, oh, peace out. With my little earrings there. I'm a passing white woman. If someone is telling me about, their abuse or their trauma exposing because of their color, and I'm like, man, I know the same thing, I've been through the same thing. No, I can't. I'm a passing white woman. My experience is never going to be the same. However, I can say, like, I can only imagine what that is like, and that is a helpful way to mirror. And then also, I'm so sorry that you're feeling that way. I still have conflict about this because I don't want anyone to be sorry because I feel a certain way. But a lot of people respond well to that. And they're like, I'm so sorry that is what you're going through. It's not something you deserve, but let's find some solutions and some guidance moving forward. So that's number 1, acknowledge how they're feeling. That's super important. Number 2 is ask smart questions. I used to be the person who would jump in and just immediately coach. And be like, oh, here's the problem, here's a solution. That's what you want. That's what you need, right? Some people want to just be heard, and they want to just be held, and they want guidance. And it is our role to not necessarily always give them the answers, but to help them discover the answers from the inside out. And so asking really smart questions like, what do you think is your next right step? That's a great one for people to really reflect and to dig into their own inner intuition, because their higher self already knows. Like, your soul already knows what that next step is. And so if we ask somebody and we hold up that mirror and say, hey, what do you think it is your next right step? On a scale of 1 to 10, how does that feel for you? So sometimes I do that all the time, is I'll share information. I ask permission, then I'll share information. And then I'll ask, like, on a scale of 1 to 10, how does that feel for you? Is it a 10? Does that totally ring your bell? Or is it like, oh, it's more like a 2. It's kind of true, but it's kind of not. Either way, what we're doing is we're asking smart questions to support and guide them in finding their own answers. Another awesome question is, did that thought come from fear or from love? So maybe it's around their body, it's around their business, it's around their health or their family, whatever it is. A smart question to ask is, did it come from fear or from love? Because we know if it came from love, that's a really honest place, and we can move, like, say somebody's going through a separation and they think a thought. If it came from a space of love, then that's their intuition and their moral compass telling them maybe this relationship is ready to be done and over. But if that conversation the words that they're saying is coming from a place of fear, which we know is false evidence appearing real, then it's probably a time to pivot and realize, like, maybe we need to look at this a different way. What do you think your next right step is? So guiding somebody by asking smart questions is really, really important. That's number 2. And being a better friend and a coach and a mentor. Number 3 is offering a resource. So as much as we want to be everything for all of the people, and I love when my friends feel safe enough to come to me, it's also really valuable to offer a resource. So what I often do is offer a service resource. So if I know a great psychic who's fantastic in clearing karmic blocks, I'm going to say, great, I know this person. I have a therapist. She's not on staff. She's like on my friend's staff because I love her so much, and I refer a lot of my clients to a therapist. Hey, do you know someone who might specialize in that? Yeah, I actually do. Maybe recommending, so maybe it's a person, maybe it's an Audible or a book of some sort. Maybe it's a PDF, though that's another resource that you can offer someone. There's so many amazing authors out there. And I had a friend refer me a book about burnout. Oh my gosh, it completely blew my mind. It changed my life. And I'm so glad because she can support me through that. But when I was able to read this book, an in-depth submerging of information that I was really craving and needed, completely blew it out of the water. Another one I highly recommend, it's my new favorite, I'm almost done with it, is the book Untamed by Glennon Doyle. Like, that's my new resource to refer to people so they can experience that deep transformation from within. And hey, Elena and Ashley, I'm so glad that you guys are on here. Oh, Ashley's the one who referred me. She did a post. You got to check out the Glennon Doyle Untamed. And I was like, what's this book? Buy it now. And now I'm just like addicted to it. And I need like all my walls decorated with her quotes. So offering that resource. Also, another really great opportunity is go through meditations or solfeggio frequencies online and see what makes you feel good and say, hey, I listened to this meditation around manifestation. Maybe it was Ashley and Mud's Eyes on her YouTube. And I'd love to send this to you to support you in releasing the trapped emotions that are in your space and everything that you're feeling right now. Another thing is a quote. I love doing this. I'll sometimes go on Pinterest when I know that a friend is going through a really hard time. I'll go on Pinterest and I'll look up quotes that may be suitable for whatever it is that they're experiencing and going through. And I'll send them that quote because you get hit with that, like the right words, and you can feel it to your bones. And you're like, wow, that feels really good and really safe. And that is another way that we can support our friends. So acknowledge how they're feeling. Tip number 1. Number 2 is ask smart questions to help them find their own internal guidance. And number 3 is offer a resource. Things that you can do to be a better friend and a mentor, and also be empathetic in that space. Okay, 3 things not to do, which are a lot of mistakes that I have made. Do not compare stories and battle wounds. I would totally do this. I thought that's what you did. Someone's like, oh yeah, this happened to me. And I'm like, totally get it. This happened to me too. Sometimes that is appropriate, but other times it's like, yeah, my grandma died. And you're like, I had a hamster that died once and it just wrecked me. And it's like, they're not the same thing, I get it, but they're not the same thing. And how can we support our friend even more by just listening to what they have to say rather than comparing the battle wounds? And what ends up happening is it invalidates their experience. And I did realize that when somebody had done it to me, when I was sharing something really potent and deep to me, and then they shared something in contrast. And I was like, that's not the same thing. You don't get it. And I got upset in a time when she was trying to help me. So what if, and hi, Julie, what if instead of comparing, we chose to just listen? And this story that keeps coming up, and I think it was from Brene Brown, who is a genius of all things, but especially on courage and empathy. She says, I believe it was her, she said, empathy versus sympathy. If you think of like two teddy bears, and there's a hole, and there's one teddy bear at the very bottom of the hole. And sympathy walks by at the top of the hole, and he looks down in the hole and says, hey friend, how's it going? And the bear looks up and says, this really sucks. It's really cold down here. I don't like it. I feel alone. And sympathy says, sucks for you, man. Well, have a good day. I'll see you later. And it walks off. Empathy, however, sees the little bear at the bottom of the hole, and he walks down this ladder that he throws down the ladder, and he sits with the little bear and says, hey, friend, how you doing? It's cold, and I'm lonely, and it's really dark. Yeah, it is. It really is in this dark place. Well, I have an idea. Do you see that ladder? That's what I use to bring myself down. I would love for you to climb up that ladder with me. And what do you say we both get out of this hole? And then he gets to choose, right? Do you want to get out of the hole or not? And I love sharing this story because it didn't make sense to me until my friend Ellie told me this story. Because I was sympathy. I'm like, sucks for you. Climb out. It's easy. Just use your hands and your little paws, right? But empathy actually sits down with the person. We're not invalidating their experience. We're not comparing battle wounds. We're not overcoaching into the experience. We're just saying, hey, I have a ladder for you, and I'd love to offer it as a tool for you if you'd like to get out. Sarah says, or people trying to heal their pain through your pain. Oh my gosh, that is a good one. That is so, so good. I'm glad that you brought that up. We need to be mindful of that, right? Because we want to hold space for people, but are we going to be doing more damage, or are we actually going to be offering support for them? That's number one. Do not compare stories and battle wounds. Number two, do not coach without permission. This is something where I'm like, if I'm coming to see a friend, I'm not looking to be held and coddled. You guys reference to the very beginning of this training, right? That's not what I'm used to. I'm going to see a friend because I want advice. I want to know how I can move the pin in my life. What are the next steps? So I'm actually want that information. But I realize that some people just want to hold the space. And when they unravel and they unfold and all of the emotions, they bubble up to the surface to be revealed, suddenly they look at it, and they have everything they need right in front of them. They're like, wow, thank you for hearing me. And I didn't realize that could be transformational because I operate very differently. Similar, all the same, but also very different in the fact that I do a lot of that on my own. And so by the time I'm talking to somebody about it, I need an action plan of what I'm supposed to do. So that's what I was doing to other people. I was like, oh, you'd come to me and I'd give them an action plan. And it was like, oh, that's not what you needed? Ooh. And I'm really embarrassed about this one. But I'm a coach. That's what I do. People come to me. They're like, hey, Ashley, I'm ready for a transformation and let's do it. And so I don't waste time in dilly-dallying around. Let's dig in. Let's commit. I'm committed to you. You're committed to you. We're ready for that transformation. And so I took that into my friendship space, and there was an acquaintance of mine who I did respect, and I love her very much. And there was something that she was doing in her business that I saw a blind spot for her. I felt that it was a blind spot. And so I was like, hey, I have some feedback for you. And I sent it in a voice message. So, just free flowing. And wow, these are jumpy little guys. Kendra Scott, what's the story here? Anyways, and so I was like, hey, I have some feedback for you. I noticed that this is something that you do in your business, and here's something that I have noticed, and maybe this would be something to shift and to change because blah, 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 blah. And I just coached into that situation, and it completely destroyed her. And for her, she took it very, very personally of Ashley, this person who I respect, this person who I love, that she is criticizing my work and da-da-da-da. And for me, I'm really strong. I have super duper strong and thick skin. So when I hear stuff like that, I'm like, cool, opportunity to grow. I don't really get embarrassed, and I don't really get offended very easily, because if someone tells me something, I get to decide whether it's true or it's not, or it's worth investigating. But for other people, they're not like that always. They might need to hear it in a more gentle way, and I shouldn't have coached without permission, which I'm really good about not doing that in a professional coaching situation. But she was my friend. I thought that she knew where I was coming from. I thought she could see through the filter of like our friendship of like, hey, I'm just trying to help you grow. I don't mean anything by this. Like, I love you. I deeply respect your practice, but here's this one thing that I would recommend for you. But it completely destroyed her, and she's like, you hurt me so much. And she's like, I'm not ready to talk about it. I don't want to talk with you about it right now. Like, I need time. And in my head, immediately, I was like, you can't fucking take the heat? What are you doing in business? You're not going to rise as an entrepreneur if you can't take the fucking heat. That's where my brain went, because that's how I operate. And then I had to step back and realize, and actually one of my friends was like, yeah, Ash, you fucked up. And I was like, I did. I should not have just coached into that situation without asking for permission. I should have stepped into that space realizing that because it was her business and her baby, and she wasn't my client, and she wasn't asking for that feedback, that I should have been more gentle in how I delivered it. I should have asked more questions, And so everything in hindsight, I did the best that I could afterwards of like, hey, I'm really, really sorry. I'd love to talk about this, and I do apologize. I said all of those things, and the relationship was just dissolved because she didn't want to talk after that, and that's okay. Like, it gets to be okay, and I'm detached from that. But here's the lesson that I learned is like, don't coach into somebody else's life. You might have the best intentions, but if it might be really too close to home or offensive. And I do believe that if somebody isn't, that's my thing, right? I realize I'm like, if you can't take the heat, you're probably not going to want to be my friend, because I'm going to give it to you straight, because I want you to experience transformation. And if your house is on fire, I'm not going to sit with you like the bear in the hole and say, yeah, your house is on fire. It looks pretty hot. You got some nice things in there? No, I'm going to grab the damn fire hose and be like, come on, you might be paralyzed not doing anything, but I'm going to help you put that out, because I see things a little bit differently and I act with urgency. But when it comes to being a friend and a good mentor, that could be a little different. And Ashley says, I think it depends on the person with this one. And it's true. I think it is true. And that's why I had a hard time, because I'm like, people talk to me that way. I'm like, yeah, give it to me. Like, I want it. And actually, Ashley, I love you so much. And I did a post, my tip of the day on like last year, I think, on coconut oil, and like using coconut oil for sunscreen, I think, or like lotion. And Ashley is a fantastic esthetician who I love to follow, and is the only person I'd probably ever go to if I lived in LA. But she's gotten my DMs, and she's like, hey, no, like, this is a myth. Like, this is not something you want to be doing. It clogs your pores. And I'm like, hell yeah, thank you. Like, I need that. Like, I want to grow. So I'm the person who likes to receive that information. And with this other person, it wasn't. And so I do agree with you, Ashley. I think it depends on the person, and for us to be really mindful of that delivery. As she's saying the laughing faces, I'm like, yeah, I want to grow. So number 2 is maybe not coaching without permission, or being really gentle and feeling that out, asking smart questions first. And number 3 is to not disregard their feelings. So this is something that happened to me recently, where I was sharing in a confidential group where we were all in person, and I shared something that I was going through kind of in a joking manner, but I shared it, and I was like, I'm pretty sure blank, blank, blank. And one of the girls in my circle was like, that's not true. And I immediately felt my heart sink. And I was like, wow, she completely invalidated my feelings, something that keeps me up at night, something that is really like deep in my soul that I want to work through and affects me in this space that I was talking about. And she goes, that's not true. And so let's be mindful and careful that we're not disregarding other people's feelings, because they are valid. They might not be important to you or to the next person, but if it's important to them, then it is. Ashley says, I forgot about that, the coconut oil, and it's very common for people to think coconut oil is a cure for everything. Yes, that's why you need leaders who will speak up about it, and that is you, my sweet friend. What else? Yeah, so be mindful, and I have done that too, right? If somebody is saying even a comment about their body, how they don't like about their body, and you're like, you're fine, like, you look great. Yes, and we want to validate their feeling because it might feel true for them. Same thing with kids, right? Like, within reason. Because Presley was like, she can't handle, I did the exact same thing as a kid. She can't handle the seam that's on the tip of her sock, and so no shoe will fit her because it touches the seam, which touches her toe, and she can't handle it. So as much as I want to validate those feelings, ooh, you gotta wear your damn shoes, kiddo, because it's just what we do in life. So within reason, right? But it is important to make sure that we're coming from that space, because I was really hurt. And what it told me with that friend was, ooh, I can no longer talk to you about this. It's not safe for me to talk to you about this because your judgment and disregard of my feelings and deepest emotions made me feel really small. And I thought this was a place where I could be safe, in this friendship. So just be really mindful of that. So wrapping up, 3 things that you definitely encourage you to do to be a better and more conscious friend is acknowledge how the person is feeling. Ask really smart questions, help them get to their own tools. Offer resources, so helpful, just like Ashley did with the Glennon Doyle book, Untamed. Highly recommend. That's my resource for you. And then 3 things not to do: not compare battle scars or wounds. Again, like my grandma died, well, my hamster died, and I totally understand. Not to coach without permission. Really ask smart questions first to investigate if, what you have to offer is going to be really valuable for them. And number 3, not to disregard their feelings, because it might not be intense for you, but it is intense for those people. So with that, I hope you guys have an amazing day full of amazing things, and I will chat with you soon, and I'll see you next Monday for card pull and another Wisdom Drop Wednesday next Wednesday. If you have a specific topic you would like me to speak on or train on, I would be more than happy to do so, and let me know in the comments. Sending so much love. Bye, guys.